Hello, this is Audrey Sussman from the Anxiety Control Center. And today I'll be answering a really good question I got from one of my clients. And the question goes like this. So, what do I do when I start to feel negative thoughts or start to feel down? How do I get out of the mindset and start thinking positive? Of course, she's heard a lot of people tell her, just say positive thoughts. But if that was so easy, everyone would just do that and it would work. So what she was asking me for is any suggestions that I have so that when she gets into that negative thinking mindset, that she could pull herself out in a way that would work better than just trying to tell herself to think positive, because evidently that is not working. So the first thing I say, let's, instead of the generalize when I start to feel negative thoughts, think about one area that you are having negative thoughts or you're feeling down about. So the first step always is to just pick one specific situation. When we try to fix every time, there might be different answers for different kind of negative thoughts. So I'm just going to go very generic in this. So the first thing, break it down to one specific event or happening or person that you end up having negative thoughts about. Second thing, notice where in your body you're feeling the feeling that comes with the negative thoughts. Because different emotions will be held in different parts of the body. The third thing to do is really listen to the negative thought. What are you actually saying in your own mind? And what does it make you feel like when you're giving yourself those negative thoughts? It's funny, when we have negative thoughts, they usually make us feel bad. Even if it's about another person who did something hurtful to you, when you think about it, those negative thoughts, even if they're revenge fantasies or, you wish you could say this to the other person, all that self-talk in your mind is not affecting the other person at all. If it was, I'd say, hey, do those revenge fantasies and they'd be sorry. But it doesn't work like that. The negative thoughts only hurt you, especially if it has anger to it. There's another negative kind of thinking that sometimes people do that is very unpleasant. And I think this is almost the worst kind of harm we do to ourselves. That's when we start telling ourselves something we're doing isn't good enough. Or we start beating ourselves up for something we did that we feel bad about. Those type of negative thoughts just take us down. To fix that type of negative thinking, we need to go a bit deeper to find out the root of where that program is that causes that reaction of beating yourself up. So there are techniques you can use, as the first technique is feel where it is in your body. But to really stop that programming, to change the programming so that you can almost have like an automatic guidance system that the minute you go for the negative thinking, it's almost like this little guidance system flips it, and all of a sudden it changes the thought to something positive. That's something that we would have to do together. For right now, when you start to have negative thoughts, step one, notice where in the body you feel the energy of that negative thought. Step two, notice the feeling that you get when you say this negative thing to yourself. Because feelings may be sadness, feeling not good enough, feeling embarrassed. And each one of these feelings we can actually use to track back to it's if you think of a string of pearls. If this was the first time you ever had a feeling of embarrassment or sadness or I'm not good enough, it would just be a grain of sand on your back. But because feelings are chained together, When you start the negative thinking, I guarantee there's a lot of other times you've had similar thoughts. And we can actually use the feeling to track back to the first one. It's kind of like that's where it got knotted. And from there on, every pearl of emotion of whatever that particular thought is set up on the string. And there is a way hypnotically to go back to the very root and clean it out there, because at the root is where the patterns get set of reactions that you don't want. Especially that reaction that creates stress or creates a feeling of lack of self-confidence or insecurity. Those things go all the way back to childhood. There's another thing that people do with negative thinking. Many times we fear rejection. And our thoughts all revolve around, what if somebody says this? What if I put myself out there and this happens? Even those things go back, all the way back to childhood programming. So to start for now, until we can get to the root, you can actually, for every negative thought you have, you notice the thought, what you're saying to yourself. You notice where you feel it in your body. You notice the emotion it creates. To start using a cognitive method, this is the hardest way to do it, but it is a good start, and it really does work. For every negative thought, you have to create 2 thoughts that are equally possible, that are positive. So I had a client, I taught this method, and she was moving to a new home, and it was the first time she'd be living together. Alone without somebody, without living in her parent or with a boyfriend. And so when she was thinking about moving into this new home, she was getting all these negative thoughts of, what if I have a panic attack and nobody's there? Or what if I really hate my new home? All these what ifs. So I asked her, for every negative, she needs to create 2 positives. And we started with a very simple positive. What if I love my home? What if I feel so happy and it's so cozy? So every time she created a negative, she had to create 2 positives. It was funny, about 4 days later, she called me and she said, Audrey, I got so sick and tired of creating 2 positive for every negative. I knew I had to do it, that all of a sudden I stopped creating the thoughts because it was just too much work to have to create the positives for the 2 negatives. Now, most people don't get that kind of reaction, but that worked great for her. What you will find is that when you create 2 possible positives that completely are possible, that counteract the negatives, if you do this for 2 weeks, your unconscious will already start kind of a little program that automatically will give you 2 positives for every negative, but it takes about 2 weeks to get that going. The real way I like to work with this is to track the feeling that you get from the negative thinking back in time. It's almost like taking the string out of the pearls of emotion, letting them all drop away, and that we do by healing the first event. So I hope this is helpful. This is Audrey Sussman from the Anxiety Control Center. If you have questions, you certainly can contact me. Just go to the anxietycontrolcenter.com. So it's anxietycontrolcenter.com, and there's a Contact Audrey button, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Or you can send an email to askdraudrey@gmail.com, askdraudrey@gmail.com. And for my client who asked this question, thank you very much. I think it will be helpful to others to hear the answer. Signing off for now, Audrey Sussman.